In court, Lucy Letby portrayed herself as the consummate professional, the kind, hard-working and compassionate nurse. However, during the course of her trial, the finer details in this case started to reveal the real Lucy Letby. In this video, I'll be taking you through some examples of this that I witnessed firsthand, having attended the trial of Lucy Letby. Now, one of the many examples of Lucy Letby's bare-faced lies came in the form of her mobile phone usage. Now, it's important that we set the scene here. The professional nurse, the nurse who is covering everybody's shifts, working all the hours God sends, a hard-working, dedicated, kind and conscientious individual. Yet the mask began to slip when we started to take a look at Lucy Letby's mobile phone usage, because Nicholas Johnson, the prosecuting barrister, said to Lucy Letby, "So, you're messaging your friends here, you're messaging your mates. Do you ever message when you're in work?" And she said, No. And these were her exact words here, word for word. "I have never text when I'm in a clinical area. I wouldn't do it." And Nicholas Johnson said, "Well, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you use your phone? Give us an example of why you wouldn't use your phone." And Lucy Letby said, "Because it'd be completely inappropriate. I'm focusing on the care of these children. They are my number one priority." And interestingly, Nicholas Johnson didn't then continue this sort of back and forth and produce more evidence of Lucy Letby's mobile phone usage. He sort of went off onto a different topic and he said, "We'll come back to this." So anyway, a few hours or maybe even a few days would pass. And he'd be talking about another case in this trial. And then he'd be bringing up more of her text messages. No, I never use my phone in the clinical areas. Never have done. And then it came to a head when Mr. Johnson said the following. Mr. Johnson says in the middle of the block of messages, Letby signs for medication for a baby at 10:20 p.m. Letby had said she didn't use her phone in clinical areas. A message from Letby to Yvonne Griffiths said, quote, "Hard coming in and seeing the parents." Mr. Johnson says she is engaged in a chit-chat with a friend between 8:41 p.m. and 9:10 p.m. on the night shift in a social context. A further block of messages are exchanged on Letby's phone between 10:38 to 10:59 p.m. Nicholas Johnson then said to Lucy, "Were you bored?" And Letby replied, "No." Then he said, "As a matter of fact, do you text a lot when in room 3? And at this point, Lucy Letby just had to concede the point. And Lucy replied, "I text regardless where I am on shift." Now at this point, you've got to understand, the pressure regarding this mobile phone usage had been subtle, but it had been fairly constant over the past few days. These messages were coming in. "Well, hang on a minute, Lucy, you're saying here that you're signing for a feed for this baby, but then 5 minutes either side of this, even during this sort of time that you've written down here, you're texting your friends. So what, are you coming out of the unit? How could you have fed the baby when you're sending these text messages?" This is what he was getting at in a roundabout way. Either you haven't fed the baby and you're sending these messages and the time on the sheet is wrong, or you're messaging when you're in the room, despite saying that you've never done that. So in the end, she said, "I text regardless where I am on shift." And Nicholas Johnson said, "Even with an intensive care baby in room 1? Letby replied, "Yes. And I think everyone else would say the same if they were honest." So instead of just saying, "Yeah, look, I have used my phone. I know it doesn't sound great, but I have used my phone," she does the classic tactic that we see Lucy Letby doing throughout this trial. She brings in the other people. So instead of just owning it and just saying, "Yeah, look, I have used my phone. I should have been honest. I have used my phone," she actually says, "Oh, yes, I do. I do use my phone. And everyone else does as well." So instead of just, as I say, accepting responsibility, something that Lucy Letby has a massive issue actually doing, accepting responsibility, she just brings in everyone else. "Yes, I do, yes. And I think everyone else would say the same if they were honest." Another example of the two Lucys comes in the form of the handover sheets. Again, many people have said, "Oh, this poor nurse. She just clearly has these sheets that hop into her pocket and make their way home to her address, hop out again and find themselves under Lucy's bed. There's nothing to see here. Nurses do this all the time. Breaking patient confidentiality like it's commonplace. Again, just remember the bar that Lucy Letby has set for herself at the start of this trial. I don't break patient confidentiality. I'm a kind, conscientious, and most importantly of all, hard-working individual. I don't break the rules. If anything, I tell on other people. If I see something wrong and I know that someone else is to blame, I will pull them up on it. This was proven and stated in court. Okay? So let's take a look at the handover sheets. And Lucy Letby's, again, failure to take responsibility. Failure to slip in to the second Lucy, shall we say, the less conscientious Lucy. Mr. Johnson asked, what is normal practice regarding the handover sheets? Letby replied, to dispose of them, but there are times when they have come home with me, in my pocket. Mr. Johnson replied, there are times you have taken them. Letby responded, not with the intention of keeping them. Mr. Johnson then replied, what are your responsibilities with sensitive personal data? Letby replied, to keep it confidential. Now, instead of saying to keep it at the hospital or to keep it confidential, to keep it in the hospital, she tries to then justify taking these sheets home, which again, God, I've known so many people like this throughout my life. Have you ever met those people that are just cannot accept responsibility, cannot admit being wrong? You're looking at them right here. Lucy Letby. What are your responsibilities with sensitive personal data, Lucy? Letby replied, to keep it confidential. Mr. Johnson then replied, what would have happened in a disciplinary sense if the hospital management knew you had 250 odd handover sheets at your home? Letby replied, I can't answer that. I don't know what the policy would be. Mr. Johnson said, you're not bothered, are you? Letby replied, it's not that I'm not bothered. They were at my home address, but they were still held in confidence. Again, justifying. Mr. Johnson then replied, what, in a bin bag in your garage? Letby then replied, well, I'm the only person that lives at the property, so yes. Asked about a number of handover sheets found at her parents' house in Hereford, she said her parents did not enter her bedroom. So again here, instead of just putting your hands up and saying, yes, look, they have come home with me, maybe I do have some attachment with them, even the fact that she said she collects paper is probably better than trying to justify that it's okay to take this confidential paperwork home and actually not dispose of it. Now, again, she said, what did she say just above there? So, what is the normal practice regarding these sheets? To dispose of them, but there are times when they have come home with me in my pocket. Mr. Johnson said, there are times you have taken them. Letby then replied, not with the intention of keeping them. Again, I feel that's a lie as well, because her first handover sheet, they found in this little keepsake box with a rose on it. So, like, she put it in there intentionally because she wanted to keep it for whatever reason. And a lot of these sheets were found in a bag under her bed. Some of them were found in a box which had the words keep written on it, ironically. And then she has the cheek to say, well, I've taken these sheets home, but I don't have any intention of keeping them. Again, complete load of rubbish as far as I'm concerned. So then we move back to what was said in court, and Mr. Johnson said, well, they're not held in confidence, are they? Letby said, I don't believe anybody would have looked at them. Mr. Johnson asked, do you obey the rules only when it suits you? And Letby replied, no. Mr. Johnson then said, you like telling other people what to do, but you don't quite live up to those standards yourself, do you? Letby replied, no. And it makes me wonder why Lucy Letby was so dishonest about all of this. Was this just a case of, I need to portray a certain individual? I need to portray myself as the kind, compassionate and professional individual that goes above and beyond to help the NHS, to help my members of staff, and most importantly, care for the children that I look after. Because Lucy Letby was found short on a number of occasions regarding her credibility. Now, some people have said, well, there's no evidence in this case. There's no hard evidence against Lucy Letby. She is just a poor nurse being persecuted. These people either didn't attend the trial, which I'd imagine that's probably the case, or haven't followed the case in any real detail at all, because there are countless occasions where Lucy Letby was found out to be completely and utterly lying. And bearing in mind, this isn't just a conversation on social media or someone having a discussion with their parents. This person has taken an oath in court to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So when you have someone using their mobile phone and then completely lying about that, you have to ask yourself, well, why would they say that? Is that to create a false image? Which I believe personally that was the reason. Because I'm not going to give any reason here for them to think that I'm a bad individual. I'm not going to give them any ammunition to think that I'm a bad nurse, that I haven't done things properly. But it turned out she had broken the rules on a number of occasions, not just with the mobile phone, but in terms of patient confidentiality and the 257 handover sheets found at her property. We then had professional Lucy, again the person, the individual, the nurse who knew about the dangers of air embolus. She had concerns about certain colleagues' conduct, whether other individuals who were working there were as highly skilled and experienced as she was. She was an individual, as I say, that would never use her phone in a clinical area. She refuted a lot of the testimony of her colleagues that actually had 15 to 20 years more experience than her. But then we had the other side, the clumsy Lucy, the one that took the 257 handover sheets home by accident, who didn't even know what the symptoms of an air embolus was. Do you remember that? Air embolus, the cause of a lot of these deaths in these children. Lucy Letby had completed a course on the dangers of air embolus a week before she attacked child A. Yet when the police arrested her and they interviewed her, so air embolus, Lucy, what do you know about that? Tell us about the symptoms of air embolus. She said, I don't know. I don't know what an air embolus is. I don't know what symptoms could be caused by an air embolus. I've got no idea. But then in court, she had to admit the complete opposite. So, as I say, she's completed a course on air embolus. She knows the dangers of an air embolus. A week later, surprise, surprise, babies start dying from air embolus, in my opinion, caused by Lucy Letby. Shortly before she's kicked off the unit, she then fills out what they call a DATIX form, which is like a form if you fill out for medical equipment that's faulty, this, that and the other, if you find some sort of issue with a piece of equipment. She then fills out a DATIX or a DATIX form saying that a bung's missing on one of the lines, which could cause an accidental air embolus. So she was covering herself. Shortly before she was removed from the unit, she started to slip these little reports in, just in case they started to look at these cases that little bit closer. And then when they arrest her, so Lucy, yeah, as I say, air embolus. Could you talk us through what an air embolus is, what it could cause? Well, I don't know, I've never heard of an air embolus. Absolute lies. For people to still sit there and say this person's credible, this person has got credibility, this person is persecuted, this is a conspiracy against poor Lucy. Give your head a wobble, seriously. Take a look back. These people that still feel that Lucy Letby is innocent, take a look back, read all of the transcripts from the court, or at least the live reporting. You've got months and months worth of information that you can find online from the Chester Standard. Take a look back and read it for yourself. The amount of times that Lucy Letby was talking out of her backside just to cover herself, in my opinion. So as I say, we have the professional nurse, the one who is on top of everything, great with paperwork. And then we had the nurse who actually falsified paperwork. The amount of times in this trial where Lucy Letby falsified paperwork. Are people going to say, well, that was just a mistake? That was just a mistake. Do you know what Lucy Letby did? Bearing in mind, she was very close to a lot of her colleagues. There was one occasion where she overfed one of the children. And she actually changed the time of the event of this baby having a vomit to make it look like this had been caused by her colleague who gave the feed. Who would do something like that? Who would do something like that? Not only to a work colleague, but someone that she classed as a friend, someone that she would message outside of work hours. Literally changed the paperwork, falsified the paperwork to implicate one of her colleagues. Absolutely disgusting. Another interesting aspect of this case that again I witnessed firsthand was when Lucy Letby's colleagues gave evidence and they testified in court. Now, if these colleagues backed up Lucy Letby's version of events, or if they agreed with what Lucy had said or what Lucy Letby had done in terms of the normal protocol, Lucy Letby would have absolute no problem in recalling this. She would say, yeah, absolutely, no problem. That's exactly what happened. Yet if the colleagues then turned around and said, well, this is what we usually do, Lucy did this, we usually do something else, or they disputed or went against what Lucy Letby had done, well, I don't remember that, I don't recall, I have no memory of that, I don't recall, I can't answer that. Her memory was only good if it made good Lucy appear, if it made her look good, the individual. Again, we're looking at someone here who portrays herself as someone she is actually not. Go back to the cases regarding the strange and bizarre discoloration found on the skin of many of these babies. 3 or 4 highly experienced nurses or doctors have said in this trial, I have never seen skin discoloration like I saw in these cases. I haven't seen it before and I haven't seen it since. Yet when Lucy Letby is interviewed by police, well, yeah, that is rare, but I have seen it before. I mean, what they're saying, that's not what I saw. That's not what I saw at all. No. That's not what I saw. So these 3 or 4 people are wrong, according to Lucy Letby. She's the one in the right. And ask yourself, why is she disputing the discoloration on some of these babies' skins? Clearly, it's because she's injected air. And this will obviously show certain symptoms. The discoloration of skin is a particular example of that. And if she admits it, she's also admitting that they may have died from an air embolus. So by saying, well, it's kind of similar, but not quite that, she's allowing some distance there, isn't she? Her protective mechanism is kicking in to some degree, because she doesn't want to admit that she saw exactly the same as what not just doctors saw, but doctors and also many of the parents of these children also witnessed. Now, in the case of child B, I believe it was, the skin discoloration was so bizarre, so unique, that the doctor or the person that was dealing with this case told Lucy to go and get a camera. Go and get a camera. Go off to the storeroom, go off to the workstation, wherever this camera was stored. Go and get a camera. We need photographic evidence of this. Now, Lucy Letby turned up too late and the rash had dissipated. But it just tells you, doesn't it, the severity of this rash, or of this discoloration, I should say, on these children. It was so noticeable, so notable, that they wanted to get photographic evidence of it. Yet Lucy in police interview, yeah, it's kind of similar. It's rare, but I have seen it before. It's what they're describing. No, it's not that. It's not that. Ask yourself why she would distance herself, not just from one person. If you had one person, they disagree, fair enough. But when you've got 3 or 4 people describing the same event, describing the same discoloration, and then you have someone who is on trial for murder saying, no, I didn't see that, then who do you side with there? The 3 or 4 doctors and nurses who saw the same thing, or do you side with the one individual who is claiming something totally different? What also stood out to me in particular is Lucy Letby's complete lack of interest during moments of her cross-examination. And I don't mean in terms of interest in the case as a whole, but when she had to defend herself, when there was no way out of the lies that she had told, the falsifying of paperwork, the Facebook searches at suspicious times, the writing notes on her phone, the notes themselves that said, I am evil, I did this. When it came to actually explaining a lot of this evidence, I can't answer that. Almost as if I can't be bothered. That's what I heard. When I was there, that's kind of what I felt. I can't be bothered. Yeah, next one, next. Oh, come on. It was almost as if, hurry up, get going, carry on. If that was me and I'd spent years on remand, I'd spent years incarcerated or kept away from my family, I'd lost my dream job due to these malicious conspirators against me, I'd be fighting my corner. I'd have some sort of answers to these questions. Well, why did you search for this parent? Why were you so worried about these investigations that were coming down by the hospital? Why did you write on these notes, I'll never know what it's like to have a family. I'll never know what it's like to marry. If you hadn't done anything wrong, why were you writing that? Now, many people, if you were innocent, would just say, well, I was looking back over the last year and I thought, have I made a mistake? Have I done something wrong? Have I done something wrong? You know, I was thinking to myself, what's gone on here? What the hell's happening? I can't answer that. And it's literally in that tone as well. I can't answer that. Just dismissive. Don't want to know. Don't want to answer it. Get on to the next question. The same with the mobile phone. I never text in a clinical area. I am a role model nurse. I don't do anything wrong. I text all the time. I text in every room possible. I even text in the intensive care room, in room 1. I text wherever I am on shift. There's two completely different individuals here, as I say. The person who Lucy wants you to believe she is, and the person who Lucy actually is.